Alrighty folks, I think it's time to get started here. Well, I'll say if you were in my last session, you came back, thank you. If you haven't met me before, and this is your first time hearing me talk, my name is Cruth, and I'm Atlassian's Modern Work Evangelist. What this means is I actually get to spend my days working with customers both inside and outside of Atlassian, kind of figuring out how we navigate this crazy new world we're in. And then the cool part is I actually get to come and talk to people about it afterwards. So today I actually want to talk to you about how we actually think about presenting content. How do we actually, have better conversations? How we have better meetings, better events? Because to be honest, a lot of them tend to suck these days, don't they? We get into a meeting and they're like, ugh, another one? So today we want to spend some time on that. Now, before we go much deeper into that though, I do want to tell you, I've got to flash this slide up here. It's our legal disclaimer. Now, I'm not going to be talking about anything in our products today, so I'm not going to promise you anything around that. But one thing I will promise you is that you're going to learn some tips and tricks here today that'll actually help you have better meetings when you get back to work, whether it be tomorrow or if you're taking a long weekend on Monday. So let's get into this thing. I want to cover with you what we're going to go through in our agenda. So essentially over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through my deck on how we have better meetings without slides. We're going to cover such topics as, wait, I can't do it anymore. Talk about the irony if I'm going to sit here and present to you slides on not using slides, right? That would just be silly. I could totally talk with you for 30 minutes with some really pretty slides that you could tweet out, but I'm not going to. Instead, I actually want to do something a little different. I want to maybe get a little creative here. And so let's actually move over to another tool. So this is actually, I'm going to put down this clicker and actually come over to my laptop, because what we're going to do is I actually want to change our environment up. Let's do things a little differently. I'm a big fan of the whiteboarding tools out there. We've got Miro right here. I'm a big fan of how they can help breed collaboration, because they just kind of suck you in, they bring you in like that, they all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm into the content. So let's start this over again. So again, I want to talk to you about this idea of throwing away your slides. And today what we're going to do is we're going to cover a couple different topics. First, I want to present to you 5 superpowers of really what collaborative meetings bring to the table. Like, what are the things that collaborative meetings really help us do? And we all know what those are. We remember those kind of sessions. I want to present to you a case study, one that's near and dear to my heart, around how we took a meeting and essentially a way we would pitch information, and we took it from a talking at you type of conversation to a talking with you conversation here at Atlassian. And then finally, I want to make sure you can do something practical after this session with what you're going to hear today. So I want to give you 5 takeaways to actually make your meetings better. Now, one thing I'm going to do, because we are in a collaborative environment, I want to invite you to join me on my Miro board. If you hit that, you're going to be brought into the same board I am. You don't read ahead, but you can follow along. But this is just going to show you. And if for some reason we overwhelm it or anything like that, we do have our Miro Evangelist here today. I think somewhere in the audience. There she is. We just got to let her know if that happens, okay? All right, so get on in there. It's always fun to try this. All right, so we're in our Miro board. So let's get started by talking about what is a collaborative meeting. So to me, a collaborative meeting is one where more than one person gets together and they try to solve a problem. Or maybe they try to answer a question, or maybe they try to generate ideas. A lot of times when we think about what a collaborative meeting is, we think of things like brainstorming or sparring or strategy reviews, maybe even a project kickoff. But I think that's a misconception. To me, I actually think that all meetings can be collaborative if you put the right ingredients in. Because really in the end, a collaborative meeting is nothing more than what I'd like to call a purposefully designed meeting. It's a session where we say, hey, we've got some time together. How do we intentfully use this? Do we set up an agenda and send it out beforehand? Maybe we're going to build in some brainstorming time. Maybe put a Confluence page out there that allows us all to co-collaborate together. We might even do things like absolutely love adding polls into my meetings, because it helps bring everybody into the conversation. And then, of course, don't forget your icebreakers, good ways to kind of get people engaging. And so for me, we've got to purposely design our meetings. Now, when we think about this, As a participant, this sounds awesome, right? We're like, oh yeah, like those are the best kind of meetings. I hate it when I sit there and I'm just listening to someone talk to me and I leave being like, well, what was the outcome? I love these kind of collaborative meetings. But the problem is for a facilitator, they're terrified. They're like, what? You want me to do what? You want me to actually like plan out this meeting? I have to go like, well, what if they don't even engage with me? What do I gotta do? I don't know if I have time. The thing is what happens is when presented with this option, presented with, do I have a collaborative meeting or do I have what I like to call an information sharing meeting? That facilitator's gotta make a choice. Am I just gonna bring people together and actually just present information, it's the easiest path possible? Or do I actually wanna engage people in the conversation and actually try to make it better? Because honestly, when we go information sharing, we have we have subpar outcomes compared to that collaborative meeting. And here's why. I wanna share with you those 5 superpowers now. So the first one that really kind of hits the mark when it comes down to why collaborative meetings are good is they actually help create a team mentality. I think we all love being on teams, right? I mean, we're at a team event here. It's this idea that when we're part of something larger than just ourselves, it feels good. It feels so good, in fact, that we see a 56% improvement in job performance with people who feel like they're part of a team. They feel like they're like, wow, we're doing something together. We actually see a 50% decrease in employee turnover. That's not just good for better meetings, that's good for business. So collaborative meetings really help bring the team together. Next one I want to point to is this idea that collaborative meetings actually build psychological safety. In our State of Teams report that came out earlier this year, we found that 37% of teams say they lack psychological safety. That means they don't feel like they have that ability to speak up and really say what's on their mind. So for us, when we think about a collaborative meeting, we set it up as a way for people to actually share information. You get the people who don't normally share coming in and actually providing content, providing information. It's actually helping build a foundation for psychological safety, that the more you do these, the more meetings like this, it actually starts to spread throughout your organization because you've started to set a good behavior pattern. Along with psychological safety, we also have the fact that, and you wouldn't think it, you actually save time in meetings when you have more collaborative meetings. You're like, wait, what? Why? How would I save time? Well, this comes back down to the fact that we're being more intentful. A lot of times when we set up a meeting, what happens is we just throw an hour on the books. You know, we've all done that. You know, just grab it on Google Calendar, boom, it's out. We don't have an agenda. We don't have a plan. In fact, when we actually look at it and we actually start doing our work, we might find that says, you know what, I can send out some information beforehand. We're gonna cover these 3 topics. You know, I only need 30 minutes. I don't need an hour because we're gonna fill the time we have if we're given it. And so what we've seen is that 50% of our time is wasted in meetings in general. And so if we can actually get more intentful, we can actually get that 50% back. I think we all want that. Now, another thing that is important and a superpower I kind of look at as collaborative meetings is it results in a better outcome. One of the things they talked about during our keynote today was this idea of diversity of thought. When there's just one person sharing information, sharing their opinion with you, and there's no back and forth, there's no collaboration, you still only got one person's opinion. So for us, a collaborative meeting actually brings in different opinions. It brings in these ideas of like, oh, how could we do this differently? And what's cool is that McKinsey's found that if you actually have these collaborative sessions, you bring that diversity of thought, you know what you get? You get a 35% increase in creativity. All of a sudden you've got better ideas, not just good ideas, but better ideas. And then finally, we've got the age-old metric. Our friend, if it clicks, there we go, engagement. Collaborative meetings improves engagement. Think back to some of the best collaborative meetings you've probably been part of. You know, did you feel like, you know, you were actually part of the team and adding value, you were being engaged? Those things feel pretty good. But the problem is in the US today, at least, we see only 32% of people are engaged. And you know what Gallup says that actually helps improve engagement with teams? Things like, hey, do I feel engaged do I feel engaged? Do I feel like I'm adding value? Those things that you can do in a meeting can actually help improve the engagement of your people. So for me, these 5 areas represent the superpowers of what is a collaborative meeting. And so again, I would be a little bit, I would be kind of too bad if I didn't actually make this collaborative, right? So I actually want to jump us into another product, another tool to help make this collaborative. And you know, like I said, I love polls. So I'm going to actually jump us over, and I want you guys to answer a question for me. When you look at those 5 superpowers up there, which one resonates with you the most? Which one do you feel is really the one that you're like, wow, if I could make more collaborative meetings and get that, oh, that would be great. Let's give this a shot. So we're gonna go into Mentimeter. It's one of my favorite polling tools. And what I want you to do, go ahead, scan that QR code, or you can go to menti.com and enter that code. When you get there, you'll get a blank screen. Give me a little heart once you're in there. That way I know you're on. So, oh, look at those hearts coming. Look at those hearts coming. All right. So here's my question to you again. Which superpower of collaborative meetings really resonated the most with you? When you looked at all those, figure out which one it is, and then make sure you hit submit at the bottom. All right, cool. We're starting to see some scores come in. Give you a few seconds here. Which one really resonated with you? Oh, I love this. I love this. All right, I'm gonna give it about 5 more seconds. All right, so I think taking the cake here, we've got results and better outcomes, which who can argue with that? Who doesn't want a better outcome? But also things like that team mentality, I love that as well. Good job, thank you for participating. All right, so let me go over. We're back over into our presentation here. There we go. All right, so now that we've kind of talked about the superpowers, I actually want to move us into, a practical example of what this looks like. A lot of times, we talk about these things like, oh, that's great, but I mean, how does it actually act in the wild? So the story I'm going to tell you is one about us at Atlassian, and we're a very collaborative company, but we always find new ways to collaborate, how we want to improve. And the story I'm going to tell you about is about a new program we have within our organization that we call, ooh, hold on. The program that we call the Dr. Wow program. Now this stands for Ways of Working. So earlier this year, we actually invested in this idea that our customers love our products. I mean, you're probably here because you love our products. But the thing is many times we don't know how to use the products to accomplish a goal. And it's because we don't understand the practices underneath those products. And so we say, hey, here at Atlassian, we have a lot of great practices. You probably heard about some of them in our team playbook. We've documented the things that have helped us be successful using our products. And we're like, you know what? Our customers might be able to benefit from that. And so we decided to start experimenting. We said, you know what? What if we went out there and we offered a service to our customers to say, hey, we're not going to necessarily focus on your tools, but we're going to focus on how you work together. We're going to focus on how you team. And so the Dr. Wow program was born. And so for us, we said, all right, we're going to go in there, we're going to find our practices, we're going to put them together into some new offerings, and we're going to go out there and we're going to share them with you. We're going to invite you in, be like, we want to show you what it looks like. So like any good group starting to offer a new service, we said, all right, we probably got to put a pitch deck together. Like, how are we going to sell this? And so let me pause for a moment and actually introduce you to the product owner for Dr. Wow, Dan Radigan. Dan is the type of guy that will energize any group. I mean, he's inspirational, and he says, you know what? I can do this. Let me put together this awesome pitch deck for us that we can go use and start talking to our customers. So he did that. He went out, he came back, and he brought this beautiful deck to us. It was almost like a piece of art. I mean, you could probably put music to it, and you could probably win a prize for that. Well, Dan presented off this deck for us, and we started going through it, and about 20 slides in, the team kind of all paused, and we kind of thought, we're thinking to ourselves, and we're like, we're trying to do something different. We're trying to recreate how we collaborate with customers. Like, is this how we talk to each other? No, we use different tools. We use our tools, we use creative ways to collaborate. And we're like, we should really do this ourselves. We should do the same thing we do here with our customers. We said, Dan, can we do that? And he says, yes, please, I love that idea. So what we did is we got to work. We said, all right, let's use maybe a cool tool that can actually bring our customers in, maybe a whiteboarding tool. Let's kind of figure out how we want to invite them to the conversation. And through that, we built this whiteboard. Now you can't read it all, but we're going to go into parts of it. But basically it became our way of driving a conversation with our customers around their ways of working. Where does it hurt? Like a doctor, let's ask, find out where it is. Let's talk about it, not just tell you something. And so in these conversations, how we would run this, is we'd say, all right, we're gonna start it out by, we're gonna get some introductions, of course, but then the first thing we're going to do is actually talk about your goals as a customer. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Where does it hurt? What are some of the pain points? Things like, does distributed work, is that a problem for you right now? How are you doing on psychological safety? Where, are you having too many meetings? And we have this great conversation around where there's problem areas. And we even ask you, say, hey, get in there, mark it up, grab some sticky notes, tell us what are you doing today? And so over the first 15 minutes or so, we're actually having this conversation. And from there, that actually allows us to naturally lead into actually saying, all right, cool, here's our opinion at Atlassian. Here's what we believe good teaming looks like. And it gives us a chance to talk about the practices that we have here, and then actually talk about our approach. And what's really cool is that normally in these kind of conversations, what's happening is I'm telling you something, you're just nodding, you're sitting there. But no, instead, we're talking back and forth the whole time. There's no script, there's no main conversation. We're all going saying, oh yeah, this is an area that hurts. Oh, what if we tried this? It's a whole new kind of conversation for us. And what was really neat is at the end, we actually spent time having the customer talk to us about, hey, is this something you'd like? Is this something that you could spend some time with us on? And they were able to go in and say, all right, maybe I can commit myself now, or maybe now, this isn't the right time. But what they actually did was they actually got on the board and they showed us. And again, it was just that super neat experience. And so for us, we actually ran about 10 of these over the course of a month. And again, it was night and day to the type of conversations we used to have. We actually had a customer who, after about a 30-minute call, we got through this, and he says, you know what, I want to schedule another conversation. I was like, oh, I love it. He actually said, like, conversation. He's like, they looked at this as us just having a dialogue. That's what collaborative meetings are. And so for us, it was such a rich experience to try something new and show our customers something new. So as you're looking at this, you're probably like, oh, that's a great idea. I love that. And you're probably thinking like, all right, we're going to get back to the office and I want to go try some of these things. Like, I would love to have that kind of dialogue. Maybe you want to go into like an executive meeting, an executive status meeting. You're like, you know what, folks, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to get rid of the PowerPoints. We're going to jump into a whiteboarding tool. It's going to be great. And I think we probably know that that's probably not going to land the way you want it to out there. So what I want to do is I actually want to share with you a couple things to keep the fire alive. Be like, yes, we can have more collaborative meetings because there's little things we can all be doing to make them more collaborative. So I want to share with you those 5 things that you can do leaving today to actually make your meetings more collaborative. So the first thing that I think everybody should do is make sure you have a meeting agenda. You might be like, Mark, why is a meeting agenda going to make this collaborative? Because you can be intentional with your time. One of the things, again, like I talked about earlier, you get into a meeting, there's no agenda, and you're just all over the place. Maybe the speaker, maybe the presenter just talks the whole time. Now we can be intentional with our time. Maybe we have a presenter and we say, we're gonna give you 15 minutes and then we're gonna take 5 minutes to generate some questions, maybe do some brainstorming. And then from there, we'll have some open Q&A. The thing is you can set the stage for that with an agenda. Now I have a question for y'all. Who here uses Confluence Cloud? Awesome, lots of you. All right, you have no excuse for not using an agenda. Because if you go to this QR code, it'll actually send you to the Confluence meeting agenda template that's in Confluence Cloud. I use this for all my meetings. I literally just whip one up, grab it from the template, put in my information, about 5 minutes later, I've got it, and I send it out to everybody. It's great, and it's an easy way to do it. Again, you could do that tomorrow for an existing meeting. I'm sure that there are meetings out there without an agenda. So again, grab that QR code, go out there, and actually create a better meeting through an agenda. All right, tip number 2. And we kind of did this a little, talked about this a little earlier. If it clicks, oh, there we go. Jumpstart your meetings with an icebreaker. Again, these don't have to be anything big, but get people starting to talk. A lot of times we get into a meeting and we get worried. They're like, how are we gonna get people actually conversing with us? How are we gonna get a conversation going? Really for us, icebreakers are a great way to do that. I actually had a customer I was working with years ago, and what it was is we had a bunch of senior leaders coming into the room to talk about prioritization. It was gonna be a contentious meeting. We knew it was, everyone's gonna have their own priorities. Well, at the beginning, I said, all right, what I wanna do is I wanna kind of kill the tension in the room. And so we're gonna do a check-in. We're gonna do an icebreaker of sorts. I said, all right, I want you all to tell me, if you were a weather pattern, what would you be today? So we went around the table. We got a couple like, oh yeah, I'm sunshine. A couple, oh, I'm kind of cloudy. We get around to the senior vice president and he goes, I'm sunshine and rainbows. I can't wait to do this meeting. And everybody just kind of chuckled and it just killed the tension. You could cut that out of that room at that moment. And it was such a cool human experience to see somebody who these people looked up to say, yeah, let's do this. I'm sunshine and rainbows. And so for us, that meeting was way better because of that. And so think about the icebreakers that you could bring in. And maybe to give you some ideas, go into the Atlassian team playbook. That QR code will actually send you to our play that talks about great ways to run icebreakers. So let's actually practice this a little bit. And again, I like polls, so I love icebreakers then, right? So let's go back in and we're gonna run one more Mentimeter here. And I've got a couple really important questions for y'all. So go ahead, join. Give me a heart once you're in. All right, seeing the hearts coming. I love it, I love it. All right, give you a few seconds to get in there. All right, so I've got two important questions for you. Help us break the ice a little bit. First one, this is a thinker. Would you rather never hear music again or lose the ability to read? Oh, this is a hard one. Where would you be? Never hear music again or just unable to read? Huh. You couldn't learn how to read again. That's a good question. Nope, you would just, the inability to do it. Oh, I love this. We're like half and half. See, what's really fascinating is you use these sorts of questions to actually help people like really introspect a little bit. And then all of a sudden you start having dialogue around why they go this direction. You start learning about people and you get people talking. It's fascinating. All right, now for the most contentious question probably of the day. You ready for this? Is cereal soup? I'm talking about cereal with milk. Cereal soup. Oh, here we go, here we go. All right, so I'm just gonna say that I think the 8 of you, at least from my opinion, are right. I think it's more of a bisque, you know? It's more of a bisque. All right, good work, people, good work. I love it, I love it. All right, so that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, if we go back, when you're in your meetings, one of the things you might struggle with is this idea that in a meeting, how do I get people to engage after I've started up? Maybe I got an icebreaker and it was great, awesome. But how do I actually get them to continue to engage? How do I elicit information from people throughout? Well, one really creative way is called liberating structures. Liberating structures actually came out of what we call complexity science. And it's this idea of, hey, how do we help complex creatures think about these sorts of things? When we go through and do that, we can help elicit new ideas out. So one of the ideas that I have in here, or like some of the techniques in here that I absolutely love are things like open space. Open space is a great technique to bring people together and collaborate on an idea in a very organic way. Another good one that I've used in the past is this idea of 1, 2, 4 all. Basically, you start out with an idea and a question. You have individually we brainstorm. Then we come together in pairs and we share ideas and we come up maybe with an idea for us. And then we come together in quads and we say, all right, what do we agree? And then we come together as a group. And from that, you've got an idea probably from a person who maybe never talks, maybe making it all the way to the front. I actually did this with a team. We were dealing with like, how do we want to create this feature? And this guy who never talks had this brilliant idea, and it was through 1, 2, 4 all that he actually was able to get his idea brought to the front because he wasn't comfortable doing it. So this gave him a good way of doing that. I've only got 2 more and then the laptop will probably die. So we'll be fine, I promise. Let's see here. Tip number 4, trainings can be collaborative. Many of us go through trainings, many of us probably run trainings. The thing is trainings always get the bad rap of being like, oh, training. I don't want to go to that because it doesn't feel collaborative. Sharon Bowman, she's an educator and an awesome facilitator. She wrote a book called Training from the Back of the Room that includes 65 different techniques that you can use to actually help make training more collaborative. She actually talks about this idea of the 4 C's approach, where when you train on a module of content, you first build some connections to what the people know. You then share the concepts and say, here's this new concept, and then you actually help them practice it before then wrapping it up with a conclusion to kind of button it up. And so training from the back room, you hit that QR code, you'll get a chance to go see there. You'll get a chance to kind of read through her content. And then the last tip I have for you is never forget about the space you're in. And this is hugely important. A lot of times we forget about this. When I'm in a room, if I'm facilitating a session, one of the things that happens is I come in and I try to get there a few minutes early and I look around, and if it's seating like stadium seating, or if it's like lecture seating and the tables aren't glued down to the floor, I will move them around. I will try to create maybe like a horseshoe or a circle, getting people to look at each other so they can collaborate. Now the problem is many of us are in a digital world. We're using Zoom or something like that. Like I like to use gallery mode in Zoom just so I can see everyone, but it's still not the same thing. And so we've actually partnered with somebody, we actually have invested in their organization, a company called Welo, which is all about trying to create a digital rendering of the world we collaborate in. And so with Welo, what you see, if I can get to it, is it actually helps you create a physical space where, yes, we're all in Zoom, but I can see where Mark is, and I can see where Carla is, and I can see where other people are. And I can actually see how we're in relation to each other in a digital space. What's really neat is when here at Atlassian, right now, actually as we speak, we are doing our latest Ship It Day, which is our innovation day. And one of the problems we've seen in the past is that when we've distributed during the pandemic, we started seeing an issue where the teams were coming together and collaborating the same way they used to in the office. So we said, you know what? We're a distributed first company. How could we fix this? And so what we did is we said, Welo, can you help us build a digital space that we can do this in? We can do our Ship It. This is the space we're doing this in right now. It's a picture of it, of course, but we actually have like an area for like a little foosball table where we can go and collaborate if we need to go take a break. We can go join each other's sessions, kind of collaborate in different ways. It's a great tool, so I highly recommend you check it out. If you go to that QR code, you'll get to Welo's page, and you can actually see how maybe something like that could actually encourage new forms of collaboration in your team. And those are my 5 tips. And as we think about this, it's been a fun job kind of musing on all this kind of as how we could actually do this, you know? I've had a good time musing like that. But the thing is, and we're gonna move back over to Keynote now, because the interesting thing is many of you have probably started asking yourself the question, Mark, why do you hate Keynote and PowerPoint so much? Who hurt you? Well, I'll be honest, I absolutely love Keynote and PowerPoint. I think they're amazing tools to help us kind of bring a specific message out there, to really be motivating and be inspirational, those sorts of things. But the thing is we have to remember the right context to use the tool in. So for something like a Keynote or a PowerPoint, we might do things like use it for presenting to a large audience, maybe a couple hundred people. We might use it to do just a one-way conversation, maybe like me presenting to you. Maybe we want to do it to inspire people by maybe putting up a catchy quote on the screen or something like that. And now as I think about it, maybe I should have done this in Keynote. Nah, I actually had a good time doing this. I hope this was entertaining for you too, and actually inspirational to actually see a new way you could present. So because we're in Keynote and we're talking about inspiration, I want to inspire you to go out there and actually take some action right now. So you've seen a lot of cool ways of how you make your meetings collaborative. So what I want you to do is I actually want you to go identify a meeting that you think could be more collaborative. I'm sure we have them. Look at your calendar. I bet you could probably have more than 10. Find one that you would say, I want to make this just a little bit better. And from there, what I want you to do is actually try one of those techniques. Maybe you're going to put an agenda in place for it now. Be more intentional with the time. Maybe you're going to try liberating structure or an icebreaker. And then what I want you to do is share it with me. Share with me what you did. And here's the thing, I say that all the time. I say, share with me, and I get a couple people that do, but I want to incentivize you because I want you to try this. So if you go out and do this and you share it with me, let me know on LinkedIn, let me know on Twitter, send me an email. If you send me a note, I will send you 100 of the best icebreaker questions that I have collected over my career. What I've done, me and a buddy of mine, we've actually spent the last 10 years is collecting random icebreaker questions that we absolutely love. We probably have over 200-300 of them right now. And we found that there's about 100 of them that are just the right sweet spot for certain types of conversation. So if you contact me, I will send you these 100 questions. You can't find them anywhere online. They're unique. They can be yours if you let me know. All right. So just one final lens of inspiration, because we're in Keynote. I want you all to remember that, again, you are really the ones who can make collaboration happen in your meetings. Again, you are, because what it comes down to is you're running the meetings. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things. not for you, do it for your attendees. And if you need some help, as I mentioned earlier, the Atlassian doctors are always looking for ways to help engage our customers with new practices. So maybe you want to improve your team health. Maybe you want to get some better meetings and make them suck a little less. Let us know. Dr-wow@Atlassian.com. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear you. And with that said, my little red dot is going off, so I want to thank you all for coming today. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I share tips and tricks all the time, and I would love to see what you have as well. Let's make it a mutual exchange. So again, thanks for listening to my story today.